Happy Friday. You can see my art project for the week today. I made gnomes. So it's really easy. Look it up on YouTube if you got some old socks laying around, especially knee socks.
Knee-high socks.
Yeah, knee-high socks. Then pretty easy to make. So look them up. YouTube had a couple tutorials. That's how I learned. That's something fun you could do next week. Chapter 75, The Last Rifle. With the target deactivated, Rico 1 calmly moved on to the next phase of his mission. He limped through the gravesite and began collecting every single robot part. He splashed into the shallows and returned with a foot. He shook the sand from a cracked torso. He pulled a head out from the tide pool, and each part was piled around Roz's lifeless body. Bright Bill watched in horror as his mother slowly disappeared under a pile of parts. Roz looked just like the dead robots. But she wasn't dead. She had simply been shut down. "Don't do it, Bright Bill," the flock tried to stop their leader. "It's too dangerous." But the goose was determined to bring this poor mother back to life. Bright Bill had crouched low to the ground and slowly moved toward the pile of robots. And when Rico 1 limped away to collect another part, Bright Bill sprinted over to the rocks, pushed past arms and legs, and squeezed into the pile. Click! A muffled voice echoed across the shore. "Hello, I'm Rosum, Unit 7134, but you may call me Roz." Bright Bill hugged his mother's face as her computer brain rebooted. "Mama, wake up!" "What happened?" she said finally. "Where's the Rico?" "He's coming this way." "What were you thinking, Bright Bill? You must leave now before he kills us both." "I'm scared, Mama," cried the goose. "I didn't know what to do." Heavy footsteps stomped toward them. Robot parts were knocked aside, and Rico 1 looked down with his glowing eyes. Bright Bill tried to squirm away, but thick fingers locked around him like a cage. "Mama, help!" cried Bright Bill as he was pulled up from the pile. "Please do not hurt my son," begged Roz. "He is harmless." Rico 1 paid no attention to Roz. He just held up the goose in his giant hand, ready to crush the life out of him. Mist swirled in the breeze, waves sloshed against the rocks, and seagulls circled above. No, not seagulls, vultures. And one of them clutched something silver in his talons. The vulture spiraled down, and Rico 3's rifle clattered onto the shore. Geese and otters quickly surrounded the rifle. They squawked and squeaked and fumbled with the weapon, trying to aim the clunky thing. The hunter was confused. How had those animals gotten a rifle? And how could they possibly know how to fire it? They did know. The geese had seen a trigger pressed before. A beam of light briefly flashed through the gloom. At first it seemed as if nothing had happened, but a moment later, Rico 1's chest began glowing a brilliant orange. Oh my goodness. And then it was melting and oozing down his front, and soon there was a wide gaping hole in the middle of his torso. His hand had suddenly unclutched, and Bright Bill fluttered away. Seawater sprayed over the gravesite, and his steam hissed up from Rico's scorching hot guts. He shook and twitched and collapsed, besides Roz. Rico 1 turned his face to Roz and spoke in a quiet, garbled voice. "More Ricos will come for you, and if you destroy them, still more will come. The makers will not rest until all missing robots have been retrieved." When will they come?" said Roz. "How long do we have?" "You can still be fixed, Roz. Go to the airship. Bring all the robot parts with you. The ship knows what to do. His voice went silent. His eyes went dark. Rico 1 was dead. Chapter 76, The Broken Robot. Geese and otters were bustling all around Roz. They were pulling arms and legs out from the robot pile and pressing them against her body. They were hoping to hear toot sounds and that the robot limbs would snap right into place and Roz would return to her old self and life on the island would go back to normal. But nothing happened. No matter what they did, the limbs wouldn't attach. Our robot's body was too badly damaged. "I'm sorry, Mom," said Brightbill, his voice trembling. "I thought this would work." "It's okay, son," said Roz calmly. "I'm lucky I can still think and speak." The animals tried to smile at their poor friend, but they couldn't hide their sadness. Roz was a mangled wreck, and there was nothing they could do to fix her. The robot wanted to be strong for her son and her friends, and she wanted to ease their worried minds and tell them everything would be fine. But Roz knew that everything would not be fine. She looked down at her broken body, and then she looked up at the geese and the otters and said, "I will need some help getting home." Chapter 77, The Meeting. Strong and nimble creatures carried Roz up to the cliffs and across the island. They carefully propped her up inside the nest. They built a fire, and then they left the robot with her son. Roz and Brightbill sat there staring at the flames until the goose finally said, "Do you need anything, Ma?" "I could really use some new arms and legs," said the robot, chuckled at her own bad joke. "That isn't funny," cried the goose. "My mother is broken and I don't know what to do about it." "I'm sorry for joking." Roz adjusted her voice to a more serious tone. "I know you want to fix me, but there is nothing anyone can do." At these words, her son looked away. "Brightbill, I'm afraid we have some difficult decisions to make, and I think you should arrange a meeting of our closest friends. We could use their advice." The goose disappeared out the door, and soon Roz's oldest and wisest friends were on their way. Loudwing was the first to arrive. She limped into the lodge on her injured foot and sat close to her robot friend. Mr. Beaver appeared next, followed by Fink and Swooper. Then Tawny curled up on the floor, and Mother Bear was too badly hurt to make the journey, so Nettle came in her place. She sat in the garden with her enormous head jutting through the doorway. Brightbill returned to a chit-chat, who was nursing her burned tail. The last one to crawl in was Crag, the old turtle. Once everyone was there, the meeting began. The group talked all through the night, and they discussed the Ricos. They discussed what to do about Roz. They discussed how to keep the island safe. There were stark differences of opinions, and temper flared. But by daybreak, the group had agreed on a plan of action. That morning, the dawn truce didn't take place in the Great Meadow. Instead, it took place in a small meadow by the foot of the mountain in front of the airship. Weary animals hobbled into the clearing, and the only sounds that came from a gurgling brook were wound through the gathering and right past her robot. Roz sat in the wet grass. She was leaning against the rock. She looked so sad and frail. However, she still had her thoughts and her words, and for the moment, that was all she needed. "Good morning, animals of the island." Roz's voice filled the meadow. "I must look strange to you, all beaten up like this, but I hope I still sound like your old friend." Hundreds of heads nodded. "You fought bravely yesterday. You risked your lives defending me, and I am eternally grateful. But many of our friends were wounded. Some may not recover. And there is worse news. Before the last Rico died, he told me that more of his kind will come to our island. They may already be on the move, and even if we defeat them, still more will come. My makers will not rest until all of their property has been retrieved. They want the dead robots. They want the broken parts. They want me. The crowd was silent. But all I care about this island, but I care about this island far too much to put any more lives in danger. And so, my friends, I must leave. Voices cried out, "Don't go, Roz. Next time we'll prepare. We've risked our lives so you can stay." "I hear you," the robot's voice cut through the din. "But look at me. My body is ruined, and the Rico said the only ones who can help me are my makers." "What if he lied?" howled a voice. "You can't trust those monsters." "You're right," said Roz. He might have been lying. There may be no hope for me, but that is a chance I'll have to take. Animals, you taught me to be wild. I want to be wild again, and so I must try to get the repairs I need. It is for the good of me and the island that I must return to my makers. A calm settled over the crowd. They knew Roz was right. Chapter 78. The Farewell. Our robot had an army of animals at her command, and she asked them to bring every robot part and rifle back to the airship. Absolutely everything had to go, and it was the only way to be sure that the Ricos would never come back. The island animals had no trouble locating the remains of the dead robots. Retrieving those remains took a bit more effort, but they were up to the challenge. Teams of clever animals returned with robot parts of different shapes and sizes, smashed heads and broken rifles and twisted tubes and heavy bodies were all loaded into the ship until the entire island had been cleared. Even the tiniest scraps were collected. It's amazing what an army of animals can do. A light mist was falling when they finally heaved Roz through the ship's doorway. Her head slowly turned to face the crowd of geese, beavers and owls and insects and foxes and raccoons and vultures and moose and bears and possums and fish and deer and otters and turtles and woodpeckers and squirrels and frogs and hares and on and on. Every animal on the island had come to give the robot a proper send-off. "Goodbye, you wild animals," Roz's voice echoed through the gray mist. The wild animals smiled, and then a few of them started to roar, and then started to screech, and then more started howling and chirping and grunting. Soon every creature was hollering goodbye to Roz. The chorus of wild voices grew louder and louder, shaking the robot's body, rattling the ship, and booming across the island and up into the clouds. And then their voices gradually died down to silence. Bright Bill fluttered up to his mother's shoulder. "You understand why I must leave," said the robot. "I understand," sniffled the goose. "More Ricos could be headed here right now. I just do not know. There is so much I do not know. I think it is time I get some answers." "Will I ever see you again?" said Bright Bill, wiping his eyes. "You are my son, and this is my home," said Roz. "I will do everything in my power to return." Bright Bill hugged his mother's worn face. "I love you, Mama." "I love you, son." The goose fluttered back to his flock. The robot took one last look at her home, and the door hummed closed. That's it for this week. I'd love to see if you guys post on here some pictures if you decide to make gnomes. Have a great weekend, guys.